document we highlighted yesterday. A document commissioned, paid for and published by New Zealand On Air that basically gives instruction to New Zealand news media organisations on how to comply with what they see as the principles of the Treaty of Waitangi. A treaty which, according to New Zealand On Air, didn't involve the ceding of sovereignty by Maori, a treaty that has created a systemically racist country that needs to be sorted out, and a post-colonial country that is woeful and terrible, and that is why Maori need to be treated specially in the way they are covered by mainstream media. Maori who work in mainstream media need to get special breaks and special treatment, and this is all to create more equity in our society. It is a remarkable document, and those of you who have followed the link through on the platform site and read it have expressed the same outrage and dismay as I felt when I brought the story to you. Amongst those outraged and dismayed is Murial Newman, former ACT MP, and of course leader of the Centre for Political Research, which writes and aggregates views and publishes views on issues around the treaty, and I guess the way forward for New Zealand on matters of, and let's not beat around the bush, matters of race. So Murial Newman joins us now. Murial, welcome to the platform. How are you?
Very good, thank you, Sean. How are you?
Great, thanks. Now, you guys had been aware of this document for a while, right?
No, we were aware of the move of New Zealand On Air, into this whole area. I mean, the Public Interest Journalism Fund, of course, highlighted it. But there was base documentation that we found at the time the Public Interest Journalism Fund came about that indicated there was a deep-seated piece of work going on around Maori and the treaty and journalism. And so it wasn't entirely a surprise, but it was so radical, the document, that did catch me by surprise, for sure.
What do you think is so radical about it, Murial?
Well, first of all, it indicates that, Maori didn't sign the treaty. I mean...
Or cede sovereignty, I think, is the term they use.
Cede sovereignty. And that is such a departure from, the way that government agencies and governments have viewed all of this. And so the question needs to be put to our Prime Minister, whether that's her view as well, and the view of her government. I mean, if you've got a government agency putting out material along that line, is this now widespread? I mean, are we going through a new phase in New Zealand's history?
Well, I don't think this document would be seen as controversial in most bureaucracies in Wellington and most government departments. This is the new normal, the thinking in here. It may not be normal, I don't know, in Te Puke or in Eketahuna or in Gore or in Winton, but in Wellington, this sort of woke liberalism is very much flavour of the month, Murial.
It's so worrying what's happening in this area, because what's going on now is a total rewriting of New Zealand's history and, of course, a total shaping of New Zealand's future in a direction that, no New Zealanders, well, the majority of New Zealanders, number one, didn't anticipate, and number two, probably don't agree with at all. And, of course, I was interested in the fact that the document refers to he purpur, which...
and the UN Declaration on the Right of Indigenous People, that is all wrapped up in it, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And it's sort of like that radical document that, was discovered just after the election, that had been produced a year before the election and secretly kept, away from New Zealand First, the coalition partner, and certainly wasn't spoken about during the election campaign. That is now underpinning so much government policy And, it's leading to this co-governance, as we know. And you have to conclude, Sean, that, New Zealand itself is being co-governed. And, in fact, that seems to be the way, the Labour caucus is operating as well. It's just such a separatist move. It's radical. It's something that New Zealanders weren't aware of. There is no mandate for any of this. It's a shocking state of affairs.
I think you made a really good and telling point there, Murial. We need a debate on co-governance because we haven't had one. And in reality, in many areas of the bureaucracy and elsewhere, we have co-governance already. It's a debate that the government or the elites didn't want to have. They just implemented it. And most New Zealanders are now scrambling to catch up, aren't they?
Yes, they are. And I do notice there is an expression in that document that talks about normalising Maori authority as one of the goals. And it seemed to me that, the thing that isn't said about co-governance is that it is Maori rule. If you have 50% of the decision-making made by Maori, it means the other 50% can't overturn it. And so whatever they want is what happens. And, and that was the objective, wasn't it, of He Puapua? It was Maori rule by 2040. Well, for goodness sake, we seem to be having it by 2023.
This document says that there need to be two forms of government in New Zealand, and because they didn't cede sovereignty, Maori should not have allegiance to our parliament.
Oh, God, in your worst nightmare, you wouldn't have imagined we'd have got to this point. So the question is, what are the consequences of this? This is what bothers me. How many of the mainstream media are going to be alerting the public to what's going on? Where is the fourth estate? You guys are it, but where's everyone else? And this is the problem, isn't it? That what's happened in the last couple of years is we've all realised the hugely important role of the media in a democracy. To hold power to account, to be a watchdog for the public. We relied on that. And I don't think we even realised how important it was until suddenly the Public Interest Journalism Fund came along, and that was a taste of what this document's all about. And suddenly you realise that you haven't got that crucial pillar of democracy anymore. And so it makes you really, really worried about the future.
Yeah. Murial, do you think, and I know you guys do good work, I read a lot of it, we publish a lot of the stuff or republish a lot of the stuff that you guys publish, but you've been an MP, you've been in Parliament.
Josh had a crazy idea, a refreshing gin without alcohol, so he went to Crazy Domains. He secured his domain and...
Do you think you can have an influence doing what you're doing right now, or is the boat sailed? Is this battle over? Should we give up?
No, we shouldn't give up. You don't give up. This is the big thing. You can get discouraged, but you have to pick yourself up and have another go. Because you've got to remember with all of this that the majority of New Zealanders are horrified by what's going on. The problem is so many of them still aren't aware of it. And that is the real battle that we have. It's ensuring that by election time, Kiwis understand what the real crucial issues are that we're fighting for in this next election. And in my view, if these people who are putting through all of this Maori sovereignty, Maori supremacy policy areas, if they get another 3 years to embed it in even further, then even if you get a change in government, after that, it will be very, very difficult to change. And so the whole future of New Zealand, I think, will be radically altered, probably permanently. And that is the real deep worry as we face the election later on this year.
David Seymour, seemed to suggest to me that some of the stuff is going to have to be rolled back. He believes we need to have a referendum on co-governments. I know that Winston Peterson tends going very, very hard on these issues. But we see the National Party, I think, be reluctant to engage on this, try to chart a very, very bland middle course or middle ground on these issues. Does that disappoint you?
Look, it's worrying because there's no signal to tell us exactly, how far they intend to roll things back. I mean, we have their commitment to repealing Three Waters, and I'm pretty sure they intend to repeal the Maori Health Authority, which, of course, has brought co-governance into the health system. And so on a couple of specifics, they have been clear, but on the other stuff, they haven't. And, of course, this is really widespread and rampant throughout the whole public sector, as you've alluded to. And so, the charitable opinion is that they're keeping their powder dry until closer to the election. I mean, if you're honest, Sean, if you look back at Judith Collins, when he Purpur was first brought into the, public arena and everyone became aware of it, she did try to oppose it.
Oh, she wasn't wrong. She wasn't wrong. She may have been ahead of her time.
That's right. But she was crucified by the media.
By guess who? By the media, who were taking the money from the government.
I know, it was shocking, absolutely shocking. And, National presumably have learnt from that and realised that, on these woke issues, they're probably better just to play a middle road until at a time where the election comes along and there's so much going on, so you don't get that long period of crucifixion that we saw with poor old Judith, because that was just horrible. Yeah.
Now, interesting, I'll just let you know, we, of course, published on our pages a link to this document, which is provided clearly by New Zealand On Air. My understanding is that link has now been taken down by New Zealand On Air. So we're going to have to take pictures of the thing and then post it online anyway. We'll make sure people can still read it. But we will check that.
So are you saying that the document is now no longer available
online
on the internet
from the link that we had? Yeah. So maybe we have a choose.
Really interesting.
But that's the independent document that New Zealand On Air didn't want to talk about yesterday. The minister, no politician, no government person has wanted to talk about, which seems to me too to be pretty telling that they're running for cover on this stuff now.
Listen, does this make you think that the media should receive no government funding? Is that where this, ends up by going? Because...
Well, we don't. Any funding, apart from our generous backers and our subscribers, and we're in the process of doing that. It's a hard business, but it is a business, Murial. I think if there is funding got to be doled out, you've got to have a better mechanism than New Zealand On Air, whose board is clearly woke. There are people who are clearly political operatives in there. I think you've got to have a more transparent and less politicised distribution of that money. But to be honest, I think in my purest dreams, I don't think the government should subsidise news media, no. I think news media should rely on its audience, and the new model is that it is subscribers and the people that listen who dip into their pockets who will keep new media organisations like ours running. And that's the new model. So, no, I'd say I don't think there should be any government funding, or if there is, it's got to be so crystal clear what it's for and what it's not for, that the public can have complete confidence. But you couldn't at the moment, could you?
No, and at the moment it seems that, it's just another arm of government, isn't it, that is reaching out into the community with all these different media platforms and programs and everything else, and it's all indoctrination.
Yeah.
And that is really scary because, you know, we've read George Orwell's 1984. You know, we've seen what's happened in you know, dictatorships around the world over the years, and it's all horrifying. And here we are, little old New Zealand, we're heading totally in that direction. And it's, you know, and part of it is this media reach that's going on that isn't telling the truth. It isn't giving a balance to the issues of the day. It's, I noticed in the document, you know, the way media report on Maori is got to get better. You know, we're not allowed to have any negative stories, and, you know, it just is totally corrupting the whole basis of what the media and balance, you know, is meant to be all about. It's a shocking thing.
I hear you, Murial, absolutely. Can I just let you know too, we have found another link to the official site, to the PDF site that is working, so I'm going to clear this up with the technical people after I finish at 10 o'clock this morning, but you can, and we'll publish that link as soon as we can. Murial, thank you very much indeed for joining us. I guess you'd be justified in some ways in saying I told you so, which doesn't make you feel any better.
To say that.
Yeah.
No, exactly. Thank you very much, Sean, and thanks for bringing it to our attention.
Anytime. That is Murial Newman. She's the head of the Centre for Political Research, which writes good articles and looks at things that mainstream media won't. There's a reason mainstream media won't do that. They've been bought off from the government.
For just